Hey everyone. Don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think about the characters and their choices. Enjoy the story. It was supposed to be a fun night, a break from the grind, something to remind us that life isn't just about work, bills, and constant deadlines. The corporate event at the company I worked for had always been a highlight of the year. Everyone let loose, got dressed up, had a few drinks, and, of course, there was the dancing, the karaoke, and the mingling. But this year, it was different. For the past several months, I had been feeling the distance growing between my husband, Daniel, and me. He had been consumed with his new role at the company, working longer hours, leaving early in the morning, and coming home late at night. We barely spoke during the week, and when we did, it was usually about bills or household chores. The passion that once existed between us had seemed to fade away. And I wasn't going to leave. I missed the attention, the feeling of being noticed, of being wanted. So when I walked into that room at the event, dressed in a new red dress I knew Daniel would have loved, if he had even been there to see it, the last thing I expected was for someone to make me feel alive again. It started with Mark. He was a senior manager, confident, charming, a bit of a joker, but I'd always enjoyed his company. We had worked together for a while, and he had this way of making everything feel less serious. He was the kind of guy who could crack a joke and have everyone laughing in an instant. But tonight, there was something different about him. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, or maybe it was just the fact that I was desperate for someone to pay attention to me. I couldn't quite place it, but I liked it. As I walked into the secret room, a little corner reserved for company higher, ups and a few lucky employees, I noticed Jason sitting near the bar. Jason was quieter, more reserved, but there was something captivating about him. He always seemed to be watching, his eyes following my movements, like he was waiting for the right moment to speak. That moment came when Mark walked up to me, leaning in with a grin. "You look amazing tonight," he said, his voice a little too low, a little too personal. I felt a blush rise to my cheeks, but I didn't stop him. If anything, I encouraged it. The words, "thank you," came out of my mouth before I could stop them, but I was already caught in the moment. We began talking, mostly about work, but with an undertone that was more playful, more flirtatious. And Jason, sitting just a few feet away, was watching. I could see it in his eyes. Before I knew it, the conversation shifted, and Mark, with his usual confident swagger, leaned closer, his hand brushing against my arm. I should have pulled away. I should have told him I was married, but instead, I let the tension build. I found myself laughing at his jokes, pushing my drink a little too far back to the edge of the table. And when Jason joined us, his presence felt different. Intimate, even. He leaned in to talk to me, his voice low and steady. "You seem far away tonight," he said, his eyes narrowing just slightly as if he was trying to read me. I glanced at him, unsure of how to respond. I hadn't been this close to either of them before, and the sudden attention from both men felt thrilling. I was flattered. Hell, more than flattered. I hadn't felt like this in years. And the worst part was, I didn't know how to stop it. I turned to Mark, smiling a little too wide, and said, "It's just, things have been complicated with Daniel lately. You know, the usual work stress. It's been hard to connect." Mark's hand moved to the back of my chair, his fingers brushing against the fabric. "Well, you deserve to feel good. You're more than just a wife. You're a beautiful, capable woman, and if no one else is reminding you of that." He trailed off, his voice getting quieter, almost a whisper. I froze for a moment. His words felt too good. They felt like the validation I had been craving for months. I glanced over at Jason, who seemed to be watching me with a mix of curiosity and something more, something hungry. I was no longer in control. And I didn't know if I cared. Somewhere between the flirty exchanges and the steady stream of alcohol, I found myself being led into a secluded corner of the room by Mark. The night had blurred into something hazy, something I couldn't quite make sense of. Jason followed us. It felt like it was all happening too quickly, but at the same time, I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop them. Mark was leaning against the wall beside me, his lips brushing the side of my neck, and Jason was watching from the doorway, his eyes trained on mine. It felt wrong. I knew it did, but it also felt like a release. A way to escape the monotony that had consumed my life. "Let's just have some fun," Mark murmured, his lips brushing against my ear. I should have stopped him. I should have pushed him away and said, "I'm married, I love my husband." But those words never came. I wasn't thinking about Daniel anymore. I wasn't thinking about the guilt or the consequences. I just wanted to feel wanted, needed, alive. Before I knew it, both men were close to me, touching me in ways I shouldn't have let them. I was trapped in this moment, caught in a whirlwind of excitement and shame, and I couldn't make myself stop. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew this would have consequences. But I didn't care. Not right then. But then, a voice cut through the haze, a familiar voice. Anna. It was Daniel's voice. The one I had been so desperate to feel the warmth of just weeks ago. My heart dropped, my stomach twisted, and I turned to see him standing there in the doorway, his face a mask of shock and hurt. I froze. The world seemed to stop in that moment, and the blood drained from my face. My heart pounded in my chest as I slowly turned to face Daniel. His eyes, wide with disbelief and pain, locked onto mine. For a second, I couldn't move. The guilt hit me harder than anything ever had before. He didn't speak immediately. His gaze flicked between me, Mark, and then Jason, as if trying to process what he was seeing. I could feel the weight of his disappointment in the air, pressing down on me. The laughter and the music from the rest of the party seemed so far away, almost like they didn't belong to the same world anymore. It was just the three of us in that moment. The men who had unknowingly torn my life apart. And me, the woman who couldn't face the consequences of her own actions. Daniel. I whispered, my voice cracking. He shook his head, his expression hardening. What the hell is this? Anna. His voice was calm. But there was an edge to it, something I hadn't heard before. I could tell he was struggling to keep it together, to not lose his cool in front of everyone. But I could see the hurt in his eyes, and that hurt made my stomach twist with guilt. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. Mark, who had been standing too close to me, took a step back. I heard the shuffle of his shoes against the floor, the awkwardness of the moment hanging thick in the air. Jason, too, seemed uncertain of how to react. He just stood there, his hands in his pockets looking between us, his face unreadable. Anna, Daniel started, his voice low and strained, and for a moment I thought he might say something else. Something to make everything feel like it could still be fixed. But instead his face twisted in disbelief. I can't believe this. I come here to surprise you, to make up for all the times I've been absent, and this is what I find. My chest tightened. This wasn't supposed to happen. I never meant for Daniel to find out like this. I never meant to hurt him. But that didn't change what I had done. I wasn't thinking, Daniel. I'm sorry, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The words felt hollow as soon as they left my lips. Could they even mean anything at this point? Could I apologize enough to make this right? He looked at me, his jaw clenched. Sorry. His eyes flashed with anger now. Do you think that's enough? Do you think a sorry is going to fix this, Anna? He took a deep breath and ran a hand through his hair, pacing a few steps away from us. The hurt in his face was something I couldn't ignore. You've been pulling away for months. I knew things weren't great between us, but I never thought you'd go this far. With two guys. His voice was rising now, his shock turning into frustration. I swallowed hard, feeling like I was suffocating in the weight of his words. I knew he was right. I knew I had let things get this bad. But the guilt, the shame, everything hit me at once, and I couldn't find the right words to make him understand. Please, Daniel, I said, reaching out a hand, but he took a step back, his expression closing off completely. No, he said firmly. Don't touch me. His voice was cold, colder than I had ever heard it. It was like a slap in the face. You've humiliated me. You've humiliated us. The tears started to form in my eyes, but I couldn't wipe them away fast enough. I never meant for it to happen, I swear. I don't know, I was confused. I missed you. I missed us. And they didn't give me attention. I didn't mean to hurt you. My words rushed out in a desperate attempt to explain, but as soon as I said them, I realized how foolish they sounded. None of it excused what I had done. Jason, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke up, his voice hesitant. Daniel, man, we didn't mean. Daniel cut him off sharply, his eyes flashing with fury. No, Jason. You don't get to say anything. He took a step toward him, his fists clenched, but then stopped, taking a breath to calm himself. I don't know what the hell is going on in your heads, but you've crossed a line. All of you. He turned back to me, his expression softer now, but the hurt in his eyes was unmistakable. I thought I knew you, Anna. I thought I knew who I was married to. The words hit me harder than anything. He was right. We had been drifting for months, but I had never thought it would get to this point. I never imagined I would betray him like this, not with one man, let alone two. I'm sorry, Daniel. I am so sorry. I whispered again, but it sounded so empty. My apologies couldn't fix what I had done. He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes filled with anger, pain, and something else. Something that made my chest ache. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way anymore. He muttered under his breath, his voice cracking. I felt the world collapse around me. My marriage, the trust, the years of building something together. All of it felt like it was slipping through my fingers. I knew this was bad. I knew that no matter how sorry I was, it wouldn't take away the damage I had caused. I need space, Daniel said suddenly, his voice more resigned than anything else. He turned to leave, but then hesitated, glancing back at me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now, Anna. I really don't. With that, he walked out of the room, leaving me standing there, feeling more alone than I had in years. The room, once filled with laughter and music, now felt suffocating. I turned to look at Mark and Jason, who were still standing awkwardly, unsure of how to handle the situation they had been dragged into. But, at that moment, I didn't care about them. I didn't care about anyone. All I cared about was the man who had just walked away from me, and the devastating realization that I might have just destroyed everything we had. I was left standing there, broken and ashamed, knowing that no matter how much I regretted my actions, nothing could undo the damage I had done, and nothing could make him trust me again. The minutes felt like hours. I stood there in that quiet, dimly lit room, feeling as though the walls were closing in on me. My heart was pounding, my thoughts were racing, and the weight of what I had just done was crashing over me like a tidal wave. I had never imagined it would get this far. But here I was, standing alone while Daniel, my husband, the man I promised to love and cherish, was walking away from me. I could hear the faint hum of the party in the background, but it felt like it was miles away. The music, the laughter, the chatter, it all seemed so distant, so irrelevant. I tried to focus, tried to make sense of what had just happened, but nothing seemed clear anymore. Everything I had known, everything I had believed about my marriage, was shattered. I turned to Mark and Jason, who were still standing there, uncomfortably shifting their weight from foot to foot. Neither of them knew what to say, and honestly, I didn't want to hear anything from them. What had just happened wasn't about them anymore. It was about Daniel, and about me. Anna, Jason said softly, his voice cautious. We didn't mean for this to happen. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I didn't even look at him. I just shook my head, too numb to respond. The weight of the situation was too much. It felt like I had been living in a fog, making excuses for my behavior, thinking I could justify everything, but now the reality of it was hitting me full force. I should go, Mark said, breaking the silence. This is a mess. He didn't wait for me to respond. He just turned and walked out of the room, leaving me with Jason, who was still standing there, looking at me with something I couldn't quite place. Pity? Regret? I didn't want to know. The tears that had been threatening to spill finally came, but I didn't even bother wiping them away. It felt like the floodgates had opened, and no amount of apologizing would fix anything. The damage had been done, and now all I could do was face the consequences. I stood there for what felt like an eternity before I finally gathered enough strength to leave the room. I had to find Daniel. I had to talk to him, try to explain. Though deep down, I knew it wouldn't change anything. How could it? As I made my way through the crowded event space, everything seemed to blur around me. People were still dancing, talking, and laughing, but I felt like I was in a completely different world. My mind kept replaying Daniel's face, the shock in his eyes when he saw me with Mark and Jason. The hurt. It was the kind of pain I had never seen in him before, and it crushed me to think that I was the one who had put it there. I spotted him standing near the exit, talking to a few of the guys from his department. When he saw me, his expression immediately hardened. He excused himself from the group and started walking toward the door, without looking back. Daniel, please, I called out, my voice shaky. He didn't stop, but I caught up to him just as he reached the elevator. Daniel, I repeated, more forcefully this time, stepping in front of him. He looked at me, his eyes cold and distant, like a stranger. Please, let me explain. I never meant for it to happen this way. He crossed his arms over his chest and exhaled sharply, clearly holding back the anger that was threatening to burst out of him. Explain? Really? There's nothing to explain, Anna. You've made your choice. His voice was steady, but I could hear the underlying hurt, the betrayal. No, Daniel. It wasn't like that. I pleaded, my voice cracking. I didn't plan this. I never wanted to hurt you. I took a step closer, but he didn't move. He didn't flinch. It was like I didn't even matter to him anymore. His eyes softened for a brief moment, but the vulnerability was quickly replaced with anger. I was right here, Anna. I was trying. But you. His voice trailed off as he shook his head in disbelief. You chose this? You chose them. And now you're standing here telling me you didn't mean it. I could feel the tears streaming down my face, but I couldn't stop them. I couldn't stop myself. I'm sorry, Daniel. I know that doesn't change anything, but please believe me, I didn't mean to betray you. I was lost, I was lonely, and I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I just need you to know that it wasn't about them. It was about me. It was about how I felt, how disconnected I've been feeling from you. I'm sorry. He stared at me for a long time, his face unreadable. The silence between us was suffocating. I could see the conflict in his eyes. He was hurting. No, he was broken. But part of him still cared. I could tell. I don't know what you want from me, Anna, he said finally, his voice low. What's left for us now? You've shattered everything, and I'm not sure if I can pick up the pieces. My heart broke at his words. I had shattered everything. I had destroyed the trust we had built, the bond that had held us together for so long, and now, standing in front of him, all I could do was beg for forgiveness that I wasn't sure I deserved. I don't know what I want either, I whispered, my voice barely audible. But I know I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose us. I love you, Daniel. Please, just don't walk away from me. He was silent for a moment, looking down at the floor, and then he looked up at me again. The pain in his eyes was undeniable. I need space, Anna. I need time to think. I can't even look at you right now without feeling like everything we had is a lie. I nodded, even though it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I had expected this. I knew he needed time, but that didn't make it any easier. I understand, I said quietly. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. He didn't respond. Instead, he just turned and walked away. I watched him go, feeling like the world was crumbling around me. And in that moment, I realized that I had lost him. The man I loved, the man I had betrayed, was slipping away from me, and no amount of apologies would ever bring him back. I was left standing there, hollow, with nothing but the weight of my actions and the painful truth that I had destroyed the one thing that had mattered most. The hours following Daniel's departure felt like a blur. I tried to force myself to stay in the moment, to be present at the party, to act like everything was fine. But nothing felt right. The music, the laughter, the conversations. They were just noise now. My mind kept replaying Daniel's face, the way he had looked at me with such disbelief, with such hurt. How could I have let it go this far? How could I have let myself get so lost in the attention of others that I hurt the one person who mattered most? The night dragged on, and eventually, the crowd started to thin out. I could barely remember how I got through the evening, but I made my way to the hotel where the corporate event was taking place. Alone. The heavy silence in the room when I entered felt suffocating. I wanted to curl up in a ball and disappear. But instead, I found myself staring at my phone, hoping for a message, a call, some sign from Daniel that he hadn't completely given up on us. But the phone stayed silent. I kept wondering how we got here, how I let it all spiral out of control. I had thought I could balance everything. The stress from work, the isolation at home, the quiet desperation of feeling unimportant. And then, there was Mark and Jason. They were there when I felt invisible. They saw me. They made me feel desirable again. They made me feel like me again. But in the process I had destroyed everything I had built with Daniel. I had betrayed him in the worst possible way. I didn't even know how to fix this. How could I possibly fix it? I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor, consumed by guilt and regret. The reality of my actions was sinking in. I couldn't undo what I had done. I couldn't turn back time. And Daniel, he was right. He needed space. He needed time to process everything. I could feel him pulling away already. But how long would it be before he made the decision to walk away for good? The next morning, I woke up with a headache, the remnants of last night's alcohol still clouding my mind. I checked my phone again. Nothing. Not a single word from Daniel. I told myself that maybe he needed more time, maybe he was just as overwhelmed as I was, but deep down I knew the truth. I had pushed him too far. And now, There was a chance I might lose him forever. I decided to leave the hotel and head back to our apartment. I needed to face the reality of what I had done, to confront the emptiness I was feeling inside. The apartment was eerily quiet when I stepped inside. I could still smell the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air, but it felt like a distant memory. I walked through the living room, the place where we used to sit and talk for hours, the place where we had laughed together, where we had shared our dreams and our fears. Now, it felt like a stranger's home. I sat down on the couch, my mind racing, trying to think of what to do next. Should I call him? Should I give him more space? Part of me wanted to reach out immediately, to beg him to come home, to make everything okay. But I knew that wasn't the answer. I had betrayed his trust, and no amount of pleading could change that. It wasn't long before the door opened, and I turned to see Daniel standing in the doorway. He didn't look at me right away. He just stood there, his eyes focused on the floor. I couldn't tell if he was angry, hurt, or just numb from everything that had happened. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt my throat tighten as I struggled to find the right words. "I'm sorry," I said quietly, my voice trembling. "I know those words don't mean anything right now, but I am. I never wanted to hurt you, Daniel. I never wanted to betray you like this." He didn't respond right away. He just stood there, his face unreadable. I could tell he was holding himself back, trying to keep his emotions in check, and that terrified me. Because if he wasn't angry, if he wasn't hurt, then what did that mean? Was he already giving up on me? "I don't know what to say to you anymore," he finally said, his voice low and hoarse. "I don't know who you are anymore, Anna. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. You've shattered everything." I stood up, unable to stop the tears that welled up in my eyes. "Please, Daniel. Please don't give up on us. I know I've made a huge mistake, but I swear I never wanted this. I was so lost. I was so alone, and I let the wrong people in. I let them make me feel something I hadn't felt in so long, but it was wrong. I'm sorry. I wish I could take it all back." His eyes flickered with something, pain, confusion, maybe even love. But it was quickly replaced by something colder. Something harder. He shook his head, looking away. "I don't know if I can forgive you for this," he said quietly. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if I can fix this." He finally met my gaze, his eyes filled with raw emotion. "I don't know if I can trust you, Anna, and if I can't trust you, I don't know how to stay in this marriage." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had known it was coming, but hearing him actually say it, made everything real. I had destroyed the trust we had built. I had destroyed everything. "I don't want to lose you, Daniel," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I love you. I've always loved you. Please don't give up on us. I'll do anything to make this right. I'll give you all the time you need. I just need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." He stared at me for a long time, his face a mix of anger and hurt. Then, without saying another word, he turned and walked out the door. The sound of the door clicking shut echoed through the apartment, and for a moment, I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I stood there, frozen, my heart heavy in my chest. And just like that, I realized that no matter how much I loved him, no matter how hard I tried to make things right, the damage had been done. I had broken something that might never be fixed. I had made a mistake, and now I had to live with the consequences. And all I could do was hope, pray even, that somehow, someway, Daniel would find it in his heart to forgive me. But deep down, I knew that wasn't something I could control. The only thing left was to face the truth. I had lost him.